Get the confetti cannons ready. Make sure the frosting is dry and the presents are wrapped. The banners better not say, "Welcome home, Deano." They should say, "Happy 50th episode. Talk of the Trinity."
Hello and welcome to a momentous edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. With me is Will Forrest to celebrate. We've got the cake out. You can't see the bunting, but the ticker tape parade happened earlier through the streets of Birmingham. This is our 50th episode of Talk of the Trinity. We made it, like a team scrambling to stay up in a Premier League after being written off. We've made it. We've had some great away wins, some great home wins, and first 50 in the book. Will's got the shirt on to celebrate us becoming part of the Villa furniture. And well, here's to the next 50, really. And firstly, thank you to everybody for listening, watching, taking part in our Twitter polls, of which there were several hundred on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, following us, subscribing on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, also listening to our audio providers at Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Geezer, Deezer, and also the forays into other avenues that we could bring Villa news to you. Fan Hub, for example, that we are on there. There's literally been tens of people clicking on our page there. So we do appreciate all the support, all the interactions, and we'll carry on doing what we're doing with a guest along the way to join us for very much for the next 50. And in terms of speaking of guests, just giving you this sneak preview of later on in the season, we will be doing our Premier League team of the season, both including the top 6 teams, self-appointed top 6, we should say, and also the so-so 14. And a little teaser, we'll see how many Villa players have made our team of the season. I'll give you a clue. It's between 0 and 11. But to more pressing matters, speaking of victories, does bring us nicely on to Saturday afternoon, just gone, 30th of April at Villa Park. It was the return of Deano, but he didn't go home with the 3 points. They stayed in Aston. Aston Villa 2, Norwich 0. And, we're having a party in terms of celebrating our 50th. We were very bad hosts on Saturday in terms of not only did we keep the 3 points, sent Norwich down. We took Dean Smith, came full of hope. We gave him a nice round of applause, which, well, deserved really, to be honest. And we cheered him off at the end. And, I think it was a good moment for both sets of fans. But, usually you expect a party bag at the end of a party. Yeah. Norwich, we kept theirs. All we gave them was, I say, a one-way ticket. Let's be honest, it's probably a return ticket to the Championship. They'll be back, in terms of, you get like a rail card when you make like repeat journeys over a certain period of time that you save money. That's Norwich between the Premier League and the Championship. But focusing on the Villa performance, I will hand over to Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest, because I'm going to anticipate there's probably one place which you wish to start when talking about the Villa performance on Saturday. So I'll open the floor to you.
Definitely. Thank you for doing so. It was a very well-deserved full debut for Tim Iroegbunam.
Yep.
That's what you wanted me to say, wasn't it?
It was, because we called it in the preview. So that's how we made it to 50, folks.
Hands up time. You called it and you called the score. I said Nakamba, to be honest with you, for the 4-3-1-2. But yeah, you called it, and it looked like he had an absolutely colossal game. think Gerrard made the right decision in taking him off towards the end, especially with having the booking, tired legs, not used to the intensity of the Premier League, potentially making another silly tackle and getting sent off. But all the signs are positive, and because of that, and because you all know how much I love Matty Cash and his fellow nationals, I put a poll out on the Twitter page, and it said Irreweg Bunning or Irreweg loan out for next season. It was Irreweg Bunning for next season, and you've got to ask yourself the question now with Tim and how well he played. Okay, against the worst Premier League team in the season, in the league this year, the team that are on a job share with Fulham, really, if you think about it, aren't they? Every other year.
Yeah, I mean, they've always got somebody on shift in terms of that one place in the Premier League.
You've got to now think with Iro Ekpener, and slightly divulging away from his great display against Norwich, does he keep his starting lineup place for Burnley? And next season, is he one of two defensive midfielders that you hope to have in the squad? Or would you actually Irreweg loan out him?
I'd say in terms of my overview of Tim's performance, it was a rare occasion, well, not rare, increasingly rare, where I was able to get to the game on Saturday. So I had a view, quite aptly for the name of this podcast, I was in the Trinity Road for the first time this season. And to be honest, I would say it was what you'd expect a debut performance to be. There were some nice touches. There were some not so nice touches. There was lots of endeavour, lots of effort. The crowd really got behind him, supporting him. I think I agree with you. Taking him off was the right decision at that time because, as you said, he was getting tired. He had been booked. All it would have taken was one, mistimed tackle, and he would have been sent off. I mean, the ref was quite quick to go to the top pocket for cards during the course of the game, so couldn't have been ruled out. But yeah, they were the perfect team to make your debut against, and there were plenty of positive signs. I mean, in terms of once in a generational player will make, that instant impact where everybody's jaw hits the floor. Most players, you just want to get them into the team gradually, just get them up to speed in an environment whereby they're not making, or if they do make mistakes, that, they're not kind of catastrophic in terms of the confidence being breached. And it was a nice game to put him in. And I think he did what we needed him to do in order to say, okay, yep, there's potential here, to get a run of games in the team or a few more opportunities. In terms of the rest of the season, I think it's horses for courses, to be honest, in terms of what games I play him. Would I play him Burnley away on Saturday? We'll talk about the Burnley preview later, but I'll tease what we may be talking about later on in terms of the team lineup. I wouldn't play him Saturday. In terms of when we play Palace at home week on Sunday, yeah, I would play him. Burnley at home on, I think it's the Thursday after that. Yeah, I would play him. I'd get him into the team nice and, just gradually get him up to speed. I mean, in terms of, you have Jacob Ramsey, the current example of a player coming into the first team, establishing themselves. He didn't play every game when he first broke into the squad under Dean Smith. His usage was gradually built up, and then Gerrard's built on that. And, obviously one day in training, Gerrard's taught him how to run from the halfway line past four people and bang it in the top corner. So that's a skill that, like on FIFA mode, he tries to utilize now and again, add that to his game. So yeah, I think there is a build up, and I think in terms of, we don't need him to play every game and we can be comfortable with him. In terms of whether I'd loan him out next season, I think that is linked to what we were talking about in the Norwich preview, and in terms of whether Louise or Tim would play. If Louise is off in the summer, I'd keep him. I'd keep him around, to be honest, just because you're looking in terms of that midfield position. It's him or Nakamba. We've been big fans of Nakamba. I mean, absence always makes the heart grow fonder, especially when he was injured. I think there was a feeling of fans appreciating what he did. I mean, when he was playing, it's kind of, there was sometimes focus on, he's not the best passer of the ball. He doesn't really offer you much in terms of the attacking performance, but you need different players doing different roles. So we like Nakamba. Would you say would you, as of now, put your colours to the mast and say Nakamba needs to play every single game next season, and if he does, we're going to be top 6? I wouldn't be that confident. He's a good player, and I think he's certainly got a squad. But in terms of you saying there's the opportunity for rotation between those two, yeah, I'd say so. And, keeping him around. I mean, if we bring somebody in to play defensive mid, and this is kind of coming up to silly season in terms of rumours as to who we might bring in the summer. I mean, the reality is nobody has a clue what we're doing in the summer, frankly. But defensive midfield is inevitably near the top of the list of most fans' wish list in terms of positions of the squad to improve. If we bring a defensive midfielder in, especially one who is brought in to be first choice, I would loan him out, but I would only loan him out to a team in the Championship.
Yeah.
In terms of, we've seen the success of Cameron Archer at Preston, and you can loan a player out League One, League Two, to get some minutes, get some match experience, and that can work perfectly fine. But, I'd say 8 players out of 10, you give them a successful loan spell in League One, League Two, you still got that question of, can I do it in the Premier League? Maybe they need that stepping stone of the Championship, or, for some players have moved to a foreign league, perhaps, kind of get that different style. I mean, there's very few who you think, yep, they've done well in League One or League Two. Yep, get them straight into the Premier League team. I mean, I think in terms of the only one that springs to mind is maybe Kessler will get an opportunity to have a go at right back after being on loan at Swindon. But that's about it. In terms of most other players, you're kind of thinking, yeah, you need that space, that step up to really test yourself. And that's what I do for Tim. If we brought somebody in to play defensive mid, send him to the Championship, get him a season, see if he can do it in the Championship, then you've got that ready-made step up. But yeah, in terms of the overall performance, it's almost their first full game. You just don't want them to have an absolute nightmare. You just don't want them to be terrible. You don't want them to look out of their depth. He didn't look out of his depth. I mean, he looks like exactly how you'd expect somebody making their debut in the team in that position. He's obviously got the quality to deserve a shot at the team. Needs refinement, needs work, needs games. But yeah, I was relatively pleased with what I saw.
It's quite strange, isn't it, to think in many ways that we have been calling out for a defensive midfielder, as you say, yet with the whole Nakamba stuff, seeing him come in, play against Brighton, play a productive forward pass that led to the Ollie Watkins goal, because he's always been chastised for not playing the ball forward, really, and then seeing Ira Wegbenham come in and do well. Are fans going to continue to clamour around a defensive midfielder coming in because we actually need one? Or is it more the fact of, we've needed one for so long, we still need to buy one, and you forget that Nakamba's played very well, and Ira Wegbenham, if he plays the rest of the season, could stand out to be one of those players who, yes, we will see them feature more next year? Or is it a case of, no, we just want an elite central defensive midfielder, a Calvin Phillips, if he comes available, for example? Because for me, that defensive midfield position, it has to be the right sort of player. And Nakamba, and from what we've seen of Ira Wegbenham in the small amount of game time he's had, appear to be the type of player that we need, two that will drop right deep into the back two where needed, or just in front of the back two, to allow Cash and Din to push forward as well, but are also happy to step forward, win the ball, take a few touches and play a nice pass. And the other nice thing about Ira Wegbenham is that we nicked him from West Brom. Nice. And now he's bossing up for us. So he's a new hero for me. He's a new hero for me.
I think in terms of your question as regards whether we can keep both of them, or whether we just look for somebody just because we've always been looking for somebody for so long, I think the answer to that depends on what the board say to Steven Gerrard at the end of season meeting as regards what the aim is for next season. Yeah. If the board say Europe next season, lad, or expect to be handed your coat because, you know, we're going to give you the money and investment, but, you know, we're not messing around now. We want Europe. Then, yeah, I would get another defensive midfielder in, just because in terms of where we are at the moment, I mean, yeah, I like Nakamba. I think he's underrated. I think he's a good player. Tim has potential. In terms of realistically, we were talking off air in terms of there's a possibility this season you might get Europe with 9th. But realistically, at the start of the season, if you're aiming for Europe, you're not aiming for 9th. Well, you shouldn't be aiming for 9th or 8th or even 7th. It's like Europe, to me, and maybe this is because back in the day, there was less European places available. If you say to me you're going for Europe, you're looking for 6 or above. And in terms of, and then when you get to Europe, if you do get to Europe, you then got to step up the level in terms of your competition as well. So it's almost, you've got to plan for 2 levels. Do I think, you know, Nakamba, top 6 player, European quality player? Maybe. You know, I mean, the proof will be in the proverbial pudding, as it were. But in terms of, if the board are looking to be ruthless in terms of going for Europe, I do think we need that step up in quality in the squad, not just defensive midfield. I think there's other positions that we need that step up as well. But if the aim is top 6, then yeah, I would still get somebody in, even though we've got those 2 players who can step in, because I can see a situation, if we do that, if we bring in a first choice defensive midfielder, I can see the situation in a couple of years where it's, and this is not meant to be a rhyme, him and Tim as the ones at Villa, and we've sold Nakamba, because you have to, well, I say have to hope, the potential of Tim may be above that of Nakamba. I mean, Nakamba's at his level. I mean, he may get slightly better in terms of training and that, but Tim is the one with the unknown in terms of how good he can be or not. So I can see a scenario whereby somebody who's been there, done that, in terms of that defensive midfield role, you're looking for Europe, somebody who knows what that is about, bring them in. They're the mentor for Tim, whether if we keep him around or if we even load him out, there's still going to be that 2-3 year window of opportunity for Tim to improve. So comes down to objectives for me. I mean, in terms of if we're happy with a top half finish, you know, kind of 9th, 10th, yeah, we probably could do that with Tim and Nakamba. You know, in terms of, I think, you know, there's a shot in terms of this season, depending on how the mathematics work out, we could come 9th and 10th, or 9th or 10th, not 9th and 10th. That'll be good even for us. In terms of this season, we could come 10th, you know, so I think it depends on the objectives of the board, I'd say. I wouldn't, even after the positive debut and Nakamba coming back and demonstrating his value, I would still be in the market for another defensive midfield to push us into Europe, along with other places in the squad, you know, in terms of, I think we will need that competition for places. There's a few too many, and we talked about it before, and as a sneak preview to the fans who are still listening to this episode, we will be doing at the end of the season kind of a state of the nation report where we will dip our toe into potential transfer targets for Villa in the summer, looking ahead to next season. There are a few places in the squad where there isn't enough competition for places, really. There's a few too many for first choice, regardless of performance. And I think we do need to step it up. And even with Nakamba and Tim, I don't think a third would harm, especially, as I said, if we go for Europe. But that's, you know, true across the entire squad, or the vast majority of the squad, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I think talking about signings there, one recent signing who you could say covered themselves in glory against Norwich, and you knew I was going to get onto this. You knew I was going to get onto this. One person who did so was Luca Din. How on earth has he played with all of those bits of metalwork in his collarbone? What an absolute warrior and beast for the team, and a nice surprise to see him in the team sheet, because I don't think you or I thought that he'd be returning this season, to be honest.
I think that does illustrate the same point almost perfectly what I was just making in terms of, I think we had to rush him because there was a little bit of jitteriness in terms of we just need the win, just to get us to 40 points. So people, well, I think in theory, people would stop talking about us getting relegated. I think there's still some people talking about us going down, even with 40 points. But there was the feeling of we need to get a result here. And he's comfortably our best left back. So I think there was a feeling we need to get him on, get the points, and then we'll take a view in terms of the rest of the season, whether he carries on playing. I mean, in terms of, again, sneak preview of our Burnley preview coming up a bit later, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play against Burnley on Saturday and we saved him for Liverpool the following week. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
I can understand that. But then again, at the same point, I think it's similar to Irawekbenham, that both of them have played well. They're both available and they've been in a winning team. Do you carry on with that momentum? I know winning team momentum doesn't seem to be a thing anymore in football, really. You don't hear about teams being unchanged, really, unless it's the first time in 11 matches that Pep Guardiola's kept the same 11. You remember back in the day, Benitez at Liverpool, and it was something like, this is the first time in 100 games that he's kept the same starting lineup. I think nowadays you expect a coach or manager, whatever you want to call them, because that's changed as well, to have a look at the opposition, to think about who's available for them, what other games have they got coming up, and then we'll play something dependent on that. I mean, you mentioned Burnley next week. Well, rightly, you mentioned Burnley. That's our next game. You look and see, okay, well, what other matches have they got? They've got quite a few coming up. They've got us again. But you look at Liverpool. Liverpool's a Tuesday night. They'll have just played against Villarreal in the Champions League. They'll have played again at the weekend. Then they'll have us. Are they going to put a strong team out against us? Yeah, probably. I would imagine that they put a stronger team out against us and the team that they play at the weekend, and they do Villarreal, to be honest. But then again, look at the side they had against Newcastle. It was very much I'd say a mix of an A and a B team, really. It was a squad team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Luka Din carry on through for the rest of the season and maybe just get rested a little bit more during the week. Go on, stay at home today. Have a day out at the safari park with your wife and kids, and just make sure you're ready for Saturday, type of a thing,
Though, speaking of summer signings, we have teased you enough, in terms of a signing that, we want to talk about in relation to Saturday. It's come. Leon Bailey, in terms of a microcosm of his Villa career, really. The 35 or so minutes that he was on the field before going off injured. At time of recording, we're not sure whether he'll be fit for Saturday or how bad the injury was, but there were moments to get you on the edge of the seat. You had a shot where he hit the bar, got into the space. There were moments to kind of tear your hair out where kind of the final pass wasn't there, or, kind of not quite seeing the vision in terms of a teammate who was in a better opportunity. Then there was the injuries. I think he went down a couple of times before being subbed. And there was a minority, I would say, but still an audible minority. Well, audible because I heard it, because otherwise I wouldn't be commenting on this.
It was you.
Well, we'll let the CCTV decide that. But he got booed off by some of the fans. I think it's born out of frustration in terms of the entire season has been stop-start, moments of quality, injuries. The thought I had when he was going off is that this is potentially, depending on the severity of the injury, if it is like a hamstring strain and he's out for a few weeks, as pretty earlier on in the season, he was out for a significant period of time with a similar injury. I had the thought go through my mind that this might be the last time we see him play for Villa. Do you see him as a player who potentially Gerrard will be looking to move on in the summer, or based on what he has done this season, do you think Gerrard will give him an opportunity to have a full pre-season, get a couple of games, early on next season if he's fit? Somebody that Gerrard will want to keep around for those moments of quality that he undoubtedly does have in his locker.
I think he'll keep him round, because I think if anything, he's another striking option. We've obviously got the two main boys who play up top. There's talk in the paper that Gerrard fielded a call from Ryan Lowe last week and told him that the only way that Cameron Archer would be in the Championship next year is if someone paid a lot of money to sign him, because they want to keep him around the squad and see how he's doing through pre-season. And he also mentioned that Keenan Davis is of interest to a lot of teams. Bailey, I think he'll stay. I think he'll get pre-season. I think he'll get through to January. It's a shame about the injuries, because he has shown flashes of brilliance. His debut, for example, his reintroduction for that cameo against Everton at home, he got into the right spaces against Leicester last week for his effort. And, his effort against at the weekend against Norwich was a great one. He set up a couple of goals also, for JJ Ramsey. The talent is undoubtedly there. There's no questions about how good he can be. I think the serious issues are, one, does he fit into our formation really? If we're going to go 4-3-2-1 next year, does he really fit into that? And if we go 4-3-1-2, does he really fit into that as well? Because he's much better suited as a wide winger, an inside forward even. If he's on the right, he's got competition with Buendia, because that's where Buendia likes to play. You could put him on the left. Will Watkins play there? Will someone else come in? Will, and I'm sure that Liam would love this, will Anwar El Ghazi resurrect his Villa career and come back in on that left wing?
No.
The injuries and where he could play. I think if we got a silly money bid of 25 million-ish there or thereabouts, because I think you'd be looking to recoup as much as you can after a season, that I could see him going. And a team like a Fulham, who are going to be losing Carvalho to Liverpool, where they may want somebody to supply Mitrovic, who's got a little bit of quality that can put a cross into the box. You never know. London's an attractive offer of a place to play as well. So I sort of agree it could be the end of him. I mean, I saw a couple of tweets from friends of the show at the weekend, and it was very much a case of, do you think that Bailey seemed interested from the off? Do you think that he was ready to come off at a moment's notice if things weren't really going for him or he wasn't feeling it? And you've got to worry that if players are feeling that way, and I'm sure they're not, but if they are, you want them nowhere near your team, especially when they're getting rewarded for doing so well in training. But then coming into the team, and you can guarantee that they're going to stub their toe or get like pink eye from a defender or something, and it's the last thing you need.
I mean, I'd say he tried to carry on. I mean, he went down probably after about 10, 15 minutes from what I can recall. And that looked the end of his day at that time. But he came back on. I think he went down again and then came back on again. And then the third time, it was kind of called off and off he went. So whether there is kind of a feeling at the back of the mind, when you've had several similar injuries, I suppose you're kind of on the lookout perhaps mentally. I don't know. I can't profess to know what's going on in Leon Bailey's mind. But yeah, I don't... It looked to me more, it was just, I used the word frustration in terms of the fans. It looked frustration in terms of Bailey, just, oh no, not again, in terms of when he went down injured, especially kind of the second and third times. Yeah, I mean, it looks bad because I suppose from a fan's perspective, it's like, we'd run through a broken leg, to play and, kind of 14 broken ribs, just to get on the end of a cross, to play for Villa. And it's not the same if you're a professional athlete, in terms of you have a certain career span and a certain period of time to make your living, kind of, as it were. And, I'm sure he's done all right so far, but, in terms of even somebody who's made, the amount of money and success that he's had, there's still, obviously family to take care of kind of for the rest of your life and all that type of thing. So it wasn't like watching Pogba when he went off against Liverpool a few weeks ago. That was, after about 10 minutes, it was like, yeah, I don't fancy this. And he probably was injured, but I think with Pogba, there was the talk, obviously his contract's up at the end of the season and that he's not staying and that he wants to go somewhere else. So was Pogba injured? Probably, but he didn't look too disappointed to go off from what I could see. So I don't think it was with Bailey. I don't think it was that situation like it was with Pogba and somebody thinking, oh, thank God this is over. I'll be off in the summer somewhere else. I don't think it is that, but I think because, maybe it's his character in terms of he's not somebody who's going around shouting at everybody and, kind of that. Maybe he's a bit more laid back. So it can come across to some people, maybe that he doesn't care. I didn't get that impression. I think it was just frustration all around, really, kind of from all angles.
So with Leon Bailey next season and looking at Gerrard and what he wants, and if Gerrard goes for, wingers like he did at Rangers before with the 4-3-3 formation that he had, or he goes for the 4-3-2-1 type of thing, if there was room for a winger in there, are you going to go for Bailey, or are you going to go for somebody returning who always puts in a lot of effort, but maybe not as good? Trezeguet, the team, or is it just a case of, do you know what, forget both of them, because another player who we haven't mentioned yet, who has signed this season, that came on as a substitute, was brilliant, Emi Buendia, deserves a chance again?
I wouldn't be surprised if a scenario unfolds where both Trezeguet and Bay go. I mean, in terms of, you've outlined it perfectly, kind of the comparison between the two. You know what you're getting from Trezeguet, that solid, dependable, and other such cliches apply. Bay, I think, on his day is the better player, but that day is not really a day. It's about 20 minutes every 6 months based on his Villa career so far, or maybe every 3 months, we should say. There's been 3 or 4 games, and it's testament to him that in terms of how many other players who've just come on as sub, mainly, they started a few games, but he's less than 10 games, you'd say, in terms of starting for Villa in the Premier League, definitely. How many other Villa players can you think of over however long you want to go back who only played such a few number of games, and yet you can't remember? I remember in that game where he did that, or this game where he did this, or that game where he did that. In terms of moments, you don't get that many. And I think that elevates the level of frustration even more, and he feels it himself, no doubt, in terms of just being injured. So ultimately, I think the answer is going to be what the club doctor says, to be honest, or whichever medical physician is going to look at him. If we're comfortable that we can get him fit and keep him fit, and he's not just, kind of going to be what you may call a player who you just got to accept being injured for kind of 4 months of the season. I'm saying I don't think we're in a position where we can, to be honest. I mean, we need players who are going to be available all season. I don't think we're at a position whereby we can just sprinkle somebody on for a few games. If medically he's not up to it, then that's a question I don't know the answer to. If it's that, then it's with a kind of a remorseful shake of the head. It's like, yeah, take what money you can get and hope that somebody else's doctor isn't as thorough as ours, and that we can get that medical signed off. If we think it's just one of those seasons which have been unlucky, and it's choice between the two, I'd keep Bay over Trezeguet because the ceiling is higher. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, if there's any doubt about the medical condition, I can see a scenario where both go. And, well, we end up with Ryan Kent, maybe, for example, or somebody else from the Gerrard Rolodex of contacts. And, yeah, Buendia, I think I get the impression more that there's a desire to make Buendia a success at Villa, both from Buendia, but also from the Gerrard and the club. I mean, in terms of, as we saw on Saturday, he's not a bad option to have coming off the bench. I mean, in terms of, I think Buendia obviously wants more of a role than coming off the bench, but in terms of building that squad, I I don't see the scenario whereby we will actively look to shop him in the summer. I mean, if he hands in a transfer request, for example, or says he wants to go, or somebody comes in with a money he can't refuse offer, then yeah. But I would, in terms of those, throwing Buendia into the mix in terms of those three, I would be the most confident that he will be in the squad on the first day of next season if he's fit, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I don't see us looking to sell him. Whereas the other two, potentially, I can see us perhaps putting the feelers out there in terms of the marketplace. I mean, you know, Trezeguet's done all right. I mean, I think, to be honest, in terms of, because he's done all right in his loan spell, that's probably bumped the value up, and I think we'll take it. In terms of, also for Gerrard, it's very easy for him to say, also because the transfer policy has changed under Gerrard. He's been able to say, I want more experienced players. It's very easy for Gerrard to say, he's not my player. You know, I didn't pick him. He's not mine. And from an economic perspective, if you get your money back and a bit more on top, then that makes it okay for the board. They're like, okay, yeah, we made a profit, so we're going to trust you, Gerrard, with your summer signings to kind of we're going to have to sell some players to get a little bit of a transfer kit. I mean, in terms of, obviously last summer was different in terms of, you know, we got 100 million, you know, for one player. So that largely funded our summer business. But historically, we've been pretty bad in terms of, we spent a lot more money than we've got in terms of transfers. And that, you know, goes back pretty much most of the time we've been supporting Villa. I mean, in terms of, there's always, you know, one big player who would sell, but generally speaking, in terms of year-on-year balance in the books, we're terrible at it. I mean, you could say that's because we've had mainly terrible teams, so nobody's wanted to buy our players. But no, so in terms of, I do think there'll be an element in the summer of, yeah, you need to get some money in, even though I do think in terms of, we are going to spend more money than we get in sales, but I don't think the board will want it to be zero in terms of sales money coming in. And you look in terms of, Trezeguet is going to be one of the players who I think you could get some money for. And I think Gerrard isn't going to be sufficiently embedded with him to turn down an offer, I don't think. And that's not necessarily saying Trezeguet is not good enough or anything like that. I just think just expendable, you know, in terms of what Gerrard wants to do. And Buendia, I think, we'll get another crack at the whip. And we have teased you quite a lot, you know, in terms of getting another crack at a whip, a summer transfer signing. It was Buendia gave the assist for the second goal. I'm going to get it out there. The suspense is killing me, and he's not even, you know, it is going to be 5 minutes of me sitting back and listening to Will talk. But Bailly came off. We talked about it for this player. Buendia sets this player up. Go on. I'll lead you in. Danny Ings show, wasn't it, on Saturday when he came on? Yep, Danny cool.
Mate, he instigated change and he made an instant impact. Yes, man. I tell you, right, I was obviously very happy to see that he come on. I was surprised to see that he came on for Bailly. I thought that Buendia may have come on for him. Yep. But from watching the game and seeing the involvement that he had, it was definitely one of those performances that you'd expect from Danny Ings. You know, the assist he got for Watkins' goal, if you can call it an assist, he was the last player to play through to him.
It was a great pass. It was a great pass.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's not the first time he's done that this season, is it really? I mean, I can remember him obviously off the top of my head, but you think about the Bailly pass for the Everton goal. You think about the crossfield ball that he put in for Matty Cash away at Leeds. So he's definitely got that in his locker. And whilst he's not of the same level as a Harry Kane, for example, he's got those traits about him where he can drop a bit deeper, get on the ball and play it through. And that's what Southampton fans said to us at the start of the season. And we'd never seen it before. We didn't really believe it. We'd only ever seen him score bangers against us.
Yep.
Like 4-3 last season. So that was obviously great. He then plays a beautiful 1-2 with Ollie Watkins, runs through, took one touch too many, probably should have hit it on the volley in front of the whole end, wins the corner. Next thing you know, he's planting a header off the post as well. You could see he was really up for it. But the one thing that really impressed me with him was his goal, in the way that he made that off the ball run for Emi Buendia, who then decided to play the ball left to JJ, which was a fantastic disguised pass as well. But as the ball was saved and it came back up in the air, you watch, and Danny Ings very quickly thinks, I'm offside here, gets back on just in time so that when Buendia's touch takes it away from him, back to goal, 6 yards out. We said it before, he's probably the player that you want the ball in front of, even though it didn't work out against Tottenham. And he's taken that touch, rifled it home. You could see what it meant to him. Ollie Watkins as well, running off, celebrating with him, because they want to play on the same pitch as each other. And Gerrard was full of praise afterwards in his BBC interview, saying that over the rest of the season, you'll probably see a lot more of Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins on the same pitches, one another. So, yeah, I'm obviously happy with how we did.
Yep. I mean,
Boston.
I'd say for me, he looked like a man with a point to prove when he came on. And obviously, pretty much his first touch was that assist for Watkins. I mean, Williams helped him out by falling over. And then I think that was a deflection on the finish as well. But still a great pass, great vision. And yeah, he wanted to be involved at every opportunity. It was a bit like earlier on in the season when we were talking about Buendia, when there was a bit of a talk about whether he'd fit in the team. And we just talked about somebody who wasn't shirking responsibility, somebody who wanted to be involved, even if it wasn't always working out for him in terms of when he had the ball at his feet. And that's what Ings was trying to do. There's sometimes where he was trying to do a bit too much, kind of, I thought, on occasion. But it was somebody, in terms of, obviously, we touched upon it earlier about Leon Bailey, and, some fans thinking, he don't look like he wanted to be there. Couldn't say the same about Danny Ings in terms of his performance. Looked like somebody who wanted to prove a point, say, look, I deserve to be in this team. I've got the quality to be in the starting 11. And yeah, capped off with a goal. I mean, the Norwich defence couldn't believe he was onside. I mean, in terms of, there was a couple of minutes where I think it went to VAR, where I think there's people in the crowd thinking, God, he must have been offside there for it to take this long. But goal was given. So yeah, that, as you mentioned, that movement to get back onside, because yeah, a couple of seconds before, he was miles off. But yeah, to get the finish as well at the end, you could tell how much it meant to him. It was a very emotional celebration, really, in terms of considering in the grand scheme of things, it's not a goal that was going to win us the cup final or, get us into Europe or anything like that. It was, you could tell he kind of needed that for himself, really, just to get back on the score sheet. You mentioned in terms of Spurs, missed a few opportunities, hit the bar earlier on in the game against Norwich. So yeah, it meant a lot to him. And, in terms of, there's no doubt in terms of his commitment and desire to want to be in this starting 11, we'll obviously have further conversations in terms of whether in the summer, whether we keep him, or I think you could say similar applies to most players in the squad. If somebody comes in with a stupid offer, you think about taking it, because very few players are absolutely nailed on for a starting 11 place, come what may. But yeah, I mean, sometimes trying too hard can cause its own issues. But yeah, he got the balance just right in terms of his performance on Saturday. And I think the goal, the cliche, scoring at the right time, it was a goal exactly when it was needed, because Villa came out the blocks in the first 10, 15 minutes. Then we let Norwich back in the game. The crowd were getting nervy, restless, because Norwich, you could tell why they were bottom, or you could tell why they were in the Premier League, or bottom of or in the relegation zone of the Premier League. Endeavour, yep. Effort, yep. Exactly what you'd expect from a Dean Smith side, but quality was not there really for Norwich. Yeah. And it was a situation whereby you're watching it thinking Norwich are only going to score if we make mistakes. And then you get a bit nervy when you watch us start making mistakes, and then they have some opportunities or half chances that perhaps a better side would have taken. And you're thinking, oh God, here we go again. But calmed the crowd at the right time. That goal from Ollie Watkins. Similar pattern in the second half, really. Came out of the blocks, didn't score, had some opportunities, let Norwich kind of get back in the game a bit more. I mean, they had a couple of chances. Again, better quality finishing from them may have got them a goal and then a nervy finish, but we were playing the game out kind of at the end. I think we would have taken 1-0 with 5 minutes to go, to be honest. I mean, we were just trying to keep the ball, which, you know, sensible game management. But then we got the opportunity wanting to prove a point as well. Off the bench also against his former team. We get up the pitch, score 2-0. You know, game over puts that gloss on it. But, you know, it was a game, I think I said it in a preview, it was a game just to get the result, you know, just steady the nerves. Another clean sheet as well. Martinez made a couple of good saves. You know, you kind of need that, is where you demonstrate his quality and the difference between, you know, a decent and a good goalie. Not having a lot to do for most of the game, but when the situation arose, you could count on him, and he did. And obviously, yeah, the continuing saga of swapping Konza and Chambers. Chambers played. Yeah, it was a solid performance. Ings, you know, probably did everything he could do to get a place in the starting lineup against Burnley that we'll come on to in a moment. I mean, the only other comment I want to make in terms of the Norwich game, obviously Coutinho, if you look in terms of the numbers and, you know, in terms of goals and assists, they're kind of dried up a bit. And so people might look at it just on that and go, oh, he's not doing anything, you know, kind of, oh, what a flash in the pan. You could tell that we talked about it earlier on, kind of in the Coutinho era, and it still looks the same to me based on Saturday. We look to get him the ball every opportunity, whether he's in space or not, whether there's an opportunity. The team goes through him. And most of the time, to be fair, he ducks his man or he gets a pass in, you know, kind of gets it to the byline, and maybe the final pass isn't there all the time, or there's a block or something like that. But yeah, he's doing that role, which whether was in the prospectus, so basically we didn't call him, he's going to be Senior Grealish, but there was very much, you are going to be the main man with the ball, and we're going to look to you to make it happen. And that's what we looked to do on Saturday in terms of, I mean, we talked about the Ings goal, assist from Buendia, and Ings assist for Watkins, so no assist for Coutinho. So you look and go, oh no, he must have been terrible. No, he wasn't terrible. He did. We're giving him a very big role in this team. And to me, it looks like he's largely doing what you'd expect, especially for a player who hadn't really played much football in the build-up to coming to Villa. I mean, there'll be some interesting conversations in the summer in terms of whether we are able to activate the loan clause to bring him to the club permanently or not. But yeah, just for me, just because I heard some people, you know, the proverbial Twitter, you can get any opinion you like, just casting some negative opinions on him. I thought it was perfectly fine to me.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Coutinho, it's very much meant to be a done deal. So the Birmingham Mail are reporting, how much I believe the Birmingham Mail, I don't know. But I'd hope that is the case. You look at Kevin De Bruyne. Now, I'm not comparing the two. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the greatest players in the world at the moment, you know, whereas Coutinho is the greatest, behind Danny Ings. But it's one of them. De Bruyne doesn't score every goal. He doesn't assist every goal. He doesn't do it in every game. He does it in a lot of games, you know. But sometimes these players, they do other things on the pitch. It's their movement. It's knowing how to take a defender away from another part of the pitch to allow spaces to create. And that's what Coutinho is doing for us. And he's been fantastic. Maybe if you want to send him a message, you drop him for a game, you know, ahead of Liverpool, and you give Buendia a chance, because Buendia and Ings, looking at the other day, they're the types of players that Gerrard's going to want, you know, those ones who haven't found their way into the team, but come on and have really put the endeavour in to get back into that starting 11. You know, you're going to reward them at some point. But Coutinho, I think it's a silly question to ask whether we sign him next season. I think anybody who says that they wouldn't really needs their head checking, because he's one of the best players that we've ever seen down Villa Park in the time that we've been going there, and we weren't fortunate enough to see the 81 and 82 teams, you know, but we've seen some cracking players since then. If anything, I'll be turning around to Barcelona and saying, how's your money situation? Because I've got a lot of monopoly money here, if you'll accept it. But if it's a bit better than we thought, then, you know, 33 million without question, just take it and we'll bring him in. And if he wants to be a villain next season, I'm sure he'll cut his wages as much as we need him to fit into that structure. So I'd be confident. That's wood that I'm touching, and wood is in a unit. Well, you take that however you like now. But I think he'll be a Villa player next season. He'll be wearing our number 14 shirts.
I mean, I'd say if the finances work, I would take him. There's also a statement of intent that you can use for other transfers coming in. And I think we could get, if he stays fit, we can get a couple of years out of him. It was always the question for me when we signed him was he fit? He looks like he's fit to me. So that alleviates any potential doubts I have. And in terms of quality, where we're going to come in the table, you know, wherever it may be, we're not going to get many better players of that attacking quality wanting to come to Villa based on our league performance this season. So yeah, if we can make the money work, I'd get him in, definitely. But speaking of getting him in, do we get him into the team for Saturday's game? Nicely linked into our preview of our next opponents at Turf Moor. We're going to be seeing a lot of them in the next couple of weeks. Burnley, a team who raised a few eyebrows when they got rid of Sean Dyche a few weeks ago. Turned so far, right decision for them so far. You can't argue in terms of the 4 games since then. I think it's 10 points out of 12 at time recording, out of the relegation zone. Got a couple of decent fixtures. I mean, they'd probably say the fixtures against Villa are decent in terms of trying to get some more points. But in terms of Burnley and the revival, I mean, we did the Premier League predictor a few weeks ago, and we did talk about the relegation battle. And this was before Sean Dyche had been sacked. I had Burnley going down. You had Burnley staying up. So for you, since Sean Dyche has gone and they got Michael Jackson, because I've seen some terrible Michael Jackson-based puns in the last few weeks. But for you, you had Burnley scrapping their way out of the relegation zone. Is the Burnley you've seen over the last few weeks what you'd expect from Burnley? Or have they been able to add a new dimension to their game with their new manager?
No, it's not at all. I thought they were going to have Sean Dyche lead them like Braveheart to safety, you know, battling and kicking the poo out of everybody that they could do on the way there, scrapping 1-0 wins, taking a 2-0 here and there, the odd draw. You know, I didn't really see them losing too many matches, obviously, because I had them to survive. Really, like most other people, I expected them to implode massively because of Sean Dyche going, because of what he's done as the longest reigning Premier League manager in recent time. You know, they've added something new to their game. They're a lot more expressive on the ball. That's what their new manager's looking to do. He said to them, go and have the confidence to express yourself, to get on the ball, to create chances. Vidra coming back into the team, I mean, he's always been a goal scorer, probably not Premier League level goal scorer that they'd have wanted, dangerous in the Championship, but he's doing well for them. McNeil seems to have got into a bit of form. It's very much a shame for Ashley Westwood that he picked up the injury that he did against West Ham that curtailed his season. But to think that they're doing well and they're not even playing Max Cornet at the moment, or he's not playing as much, they're getting some good results. And to beat the teams that they are beating, you've got to hand it to them. They're a much different beast to what we were thinking they would be a few weeks ago as to what they are as the days get closer to the battle of the Claret and Blues at Turf Moor.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're in that scrap and you're fighting for your life, sometimes even just one decision can make a huge difference. And you mentioned Vidra. He scored the winner in a game they had a couple of weeks ago. That's 3 points. That gets them closer to their target to stay up. And it's just little things like that. I mean, I think Cornet may be injured. I mean, Aaron Lennon played on Saturday. I mean, you're looking in terms of, I think most of us would have probably thought that Aaron Lennon's days in the Premier League may be well and truly behind him, being honest. But he's on there. A performance, in terms of a midfield of Josh Brownhill and Jack Cork, both score, in terms of you wouldn't have predicted that before the game. McNeil's kind of, as you said, coming back into a bit of a form after kind of a bit of maybe an indifferent season to date. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to give them credit for doing, I mean, the job isn't done yet, we should say. I mean, they're still in relegation trouble, but they made a decision which most people thought would condemn them to relegation when getting rid of Dyche, and it's given them a shot in the arm. And it's sometimes just having a different voice can make the difference. And it may be that Jackson's offering a bit more, but in terms of a Villa example, when we got Tim Sherwood in, just a different voice, just a different kind of encouragement, it got what we needed to in terms of staying up that season. Just something different. I mean, was it in terms of a tactical masterclass?
Yeah.
I'd say not really. Most of the time, it was just just trying to lift the atmosphere. I mean, Paul Lambert, that's a whole different show in terms of the depths that we sunk by that stage. But yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see in terms of this time next season whether Jackson is still in charge of Burnley and how they're getting on. But yeah, certainly they made the right choice. Got to say at the right time, and he's given them a chance of staying up. And it looks like a real kind of, I would say, battle between them and Everton. Leeds maybe being dragged into that at time of recording. So yeah, some big games kind of going on at the bottom, and Burnley will be looking to the home game against Villa as an opportunity to get 3 points. With that in mind, how do you see Villa approaching the game? And does that differ to how you'd want us to approach the game? I mean, we touched upon it in the Norwich review in terms of some players who may or may not be playing, or should they be playing? Would we try something else? How would you set up for Burnley?
I would pretty much set up the same, I think. I was toying with Nakamba instead of Iroegbunam, but because of how well he played and giving him that confidence, and with having Luca Dean at left back as well, rather than Ashley Young or someone else, or Ben Christian, who we spoke about before, I'd keep Iroegbunam in there. Chambers and Mings again at the back. They probably have looked like our strongest centre-back pairing this season. Matty Cash, been quality. John McGinn had a very good game at the weekend. Back to his John McGinn self. The reason you went out to the local Spar, bought some blue tack and the latest Match magazine, and pinned pictures of him up on your wall.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of moments on Saturday. I didn't really want to go into it in the Norwich review, but there are a couple of moments of basically John McGinn did John McGinn things. And that's why John McGinn's in the team, frankly.
Well, that's what the Villa fans have been missing from him, isn't it, really? Those John McGinn things that John McGinn would normally do, such as the little wind-up shots, the hustle and bustle, the popping your bum in your face and whatnot, and carrying on. Dean, brilliant. JJ starts. And how great is it that we've got JJ and Iroegbunam both starting, both very young, in central midfield, winning a Premier League match and making big contributions. Coutinho, that's the question for me. Coutinho or Buendia. I would be inclined to play Buendia. I really would do. However, you try not to change a winning team. So I put Coutinho in there for his intelligence and whatnot. Tell Buendia to take his chance when he comes on. Ollie Watkins starts, and Danny Ings starts as well after his cameo. I think he's probably done a bit more from that one game than Buendia has to get into the team, even if it's the two behind, because we've seen before that when Watkins and Ings will start as two up front, if we get a goal, like we did against Southampton 4 times at home, Ings then tended to drop behind and go into that more Harry Kane sort of a role rather than a Coutinho go wherever you want to. So I think you've got the flexibility of Ings there, and then dependent on how the game's going, Buendia comes on for one of Ings or Coutinho, and you probably look to leave Watkins on for all of his running and stretching of the back line. Buendia can link with anybody. Coutinho can link with anybody, you know. So that's what I'd be going for. And of course, I'd have Emi Martinez in between the sticks, who, interestingly enough, I saw the other day. And those of you who are intrigued to hear our Team of the Year selections, because of the goalkeepers that we've mentioned in there, Martinez has had as many clean sheets as Jose Sarr at Wolves, who we mentioned has had a very good season.
That's the advantage of playing Norwich near the end of the season to get some of those numbers on there. But yeah, I would say with Martinez, because he had such a great season last season, people have kind of seen him this season as not doing very well because there's been a slight dip. He still had a good season. There's just been a few errors now and again. And also the team hasn't played as well as it did or especially for the first half of last season. The team this season has been more inconsistent. So that's kind of has an effect on the goalie as well. But another very good season overall for Martinez. And, you know, in terms of, we mentioned earlier, in terms of most positions in the team being up for grabs in terms of some recruitment, goalie is not one of them for me. I mean, you'd have to be offered and up, you know, in terms of a insert word here, load of money to even contemplate selling Martinez.
The only way Martinez goes realistically is if it's to a Champions League team who have got a chance of winning the trophy. If Manuel Neuer leaves Bayern Munich, for example, you could see him going there. They look to him. So I'm linked with Juventus, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go there because he'd have a good chance of winning a league there.
Nope.
Would they have the chance of winning the Champions League? Probably not as much as they used to. But, you know, if a Real Madrid or Paris Saint-Germain or whatnot came along, which I don't think any of them will do at the moment, you can understand him leaving then. Otherwise, he stays around and he helps form that back five that will take us forward into our march to Europe next season.
Yep. I'd say in terms of my thoughts on the team selection, Coutinho, for me, the question is he fit enough to play 2 games in 4 days with Liverpool following on the Tuesday after the game. If he's fit enough to play both, I would play him against Burnley. If there's any doubt, or they say, we can only do an hour against Burnley, and then, you know, 75 against Liverpool or vice versa, or, you know, kind of not being able to get through 90 minutes if required, I would play Buendia. So I would say that's more a kind of a fitness question in terms of, for me, because, you know, in terms of both, I think would, you know, they got the skill to have a good game against Burnley, both have. So, you know, I think both would be perfectly fine. Coutinho's slightly better. So if you're looking to play your best team, I'd play him. In terms of, as I touched upon earlier, Tim or Nakamba, I'd play Nakamba, to be honest. I think just in terms of just a little more experience, because Burnley, as we touched upon, every game is the proverbial cup final for them. They're going to be at it in this game. The crowd's going to be up for it. You know, they're going to be flying into every tackle, you know, trying to establish that upper footing or 2-footing, possibly, depending on who they've got in their centre midfield. And I think experience is a good attribute to have in this game. And we touched upon Tim having to be taken off before potentially getting sent off. There's going to be an incentive to get your foot in Burnley. And that's why I just play Nakamba for this game, just a bit more of a steady head. But apart from that, I mean, Ings comes in for me, you know, for the reasons you set out. Even if that, in terms of when he came on, there were occasions on Saturday where it was a front three kind of on occasion with Watkins and Coutinho. And as you mentioned, he can interchange positions going, behind with Coutinho, Watkins. So you kind of got two behind the one, or you could have Coutinho behind and Ings and Watkins more as a traditional centre forward partnership. So yeah, the flexibility will be there, as you said, and depending on the game script, to quote our analytical American friends. But apart from that, it's same team for me if everybody's fit. I think in terms of you play Chambers just because it's a harsh one in terms of he comes in for Konza after we keep a clean sheet at Leicester. So we keep a clean sheet against Norwich. So you're kind of thinking it's harsh for someone to be dropped after a clean sheet, but then by that logic, it was harsh to drop Konza. I think it's good in terms of having that competition for places, as we've talked about. We need it in all areas of the field. And I suppose you look ahead to Tuesday. Who would you rather play against, Liverpool, Konza, or Chambers? Probably Konza for me. But in terms of you give Chambers another go on Saturday, is what I'm saying, to give him the opportunity to establish his claim. And then at the moment the rest of the team largely picks itself. So we've picked the Villa team. We've outlined what Burnley are going to be looking to do. 90 minutes, whistle goes, full time. What's the score?
I don't think Burnley are going to do what they did at the weekend again, and that is, for the first time in their Premier League journey, be training at half-time and winning. I don't know whether that was just for the first time away from home or whether it was the first time in a Premier League journey. I can't remember. I'm not that interested, to be honest with you.
It was well-timed, whatever it was.
I think we see Burnley go 2 goals to the good against us because they're at home. They had the fans behind them. Danny Ings pulls one back and then gets the equaliser in the final minutes. And I can see us coming from behind to draw 2-2 with Burnley. And I think it's going to be that man who is high on confidence after the Norwich game and because of all the love I've shared him with, that helps us on our merry way to getting a point. And I take a point now against Burnley with how they're doing, with how we've been doing recently as well. It's still 3 games undefeated for us. Whereas if this was the home game, I wouldn't take any less than 3. It's a different kettle of fish, if you like.
Yep. And like Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins on Saturday, we're both on the same wavelength here because I think it's going to be a draw as well. I want to go for 1-1. I can see a similar situation to what you outlined in terms of Burnley taking the lead and us grabbing it back, nicking the point. I'd be similar to you. I would take a point. And similar to you, I would not settle for a point in the home game in a couple of weeks' time. But I think in terms of the aim for the rest of the season is just to, we talked about transfers in the summer. We're anticipating activity in and out of the club. Gerrard bringing his own players in, getting some out. But there is, regardless of how much activity there is, there's going to be, you'd anticipate, at least 6 who are in the starting lineup on Saturday will be in the starting lineup for the first game of next season, at least. Maybe more, probably more. So the rest of the season has to act as trying to set a culture, trying to embed the ideas that Gerrard wants to implement going forward for a full season, and when he's had pre-season to work with the players and with the players he's going to bring in as well. So it's going to be a lesson, even though Sean Dyche isn't there anymore, and kind of phrases such as battle and character and all that perfectly linked into a Sean Dyche team. But I think it's going to be the same with Burnley. They, as we mentioned, they need a result. They're in a good run of form. They're going to be up for it. They're, in terms of, you mentioned, playing in a slightly different way, more freedom. That generally encourages confidence. So this is going to be a battle for this team. And it's going to be a good yardstick. And I think Gerrard is going to impress that on the players, that in terms of, in the grand scheme of things for Villa's season, it doesn't really matter what the result is in terms of, as I said, I don't think we're going down. We're not qualifying for Europe. So in that sense, you could always just forget about it in, 5 years' time. Who's going to remember this game possibly? But in terms of what we're looking to build for next season, I don't think Gerrard's going to accept anything less than, this is a battle. You got to get yourself stuck in there. But we have the quality to outplay these. Go and show me what you can do. And there's going to be players who are going to react to that, and players who may not be able to react to that. But that is going to be the expectation. So I think it's going to be a good yardstick, good battle. I think bringing it into where Burnley are and where we are, when you put that all into the mix, a point's a good result. I mean, in terms of, if you're looking at the proverbial names on a piece of paper, do we have a better team than Burnley? Yeah, we do. But, as the cliche goes, you don't win games on paper, otherwise there'll be a lot of empty stadiums around gathering dust. So this is going to be a test for us in a different way, as compared to Tuesday week when we play Liverpool, where the quality is obvious both on the paper and on the field very quickly in terms of where Liverpool are going to be playing, and we'll talk about that nearer the time. But yeah, this is a battle of a different kind. Yeah. And I think you would be disappointed, and again, this probably sounds a slightly stupid comment, if we go and get rolled over, then obviously that's great news for Burnley, because that's going to help them in their relegation battle. It's not just insert name a team here who will go down, whose Premier League careers may be over if Burnley rolls over. There'll be some players in that Villa squad whose careers are going to be over if we go to Burnley and get rolled over without having a decent showing of ourselves. So yeah, not a lot to play for, but yeah, a lot to play for. And so that is, and you take a draw, and we both take a draw. So with that consensus in mind, then that seems like a great place to bring proceedings to an end this week. And so that concludes our Norwich review and Burnley preview. Thank you very much for listening to our thoughts. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want some entertainment before the Burnley game on Saturday, check us out on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. There'll be many a poll. There'll be many a suggestion, question, conversation waiting for you. We appreciate the follows and the interactions. Or you can check us out on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, whereby you can check out our previous videos and our specials that we've mentioned liberally throughout the episode, our Premier League predictor special, also our England World Cup squad selector, predictor, bow selector, for anybody who remembers that. And we'll be uploading more specials as the months go on at the end of the season to get you through those summer months. But in the meantime, you can also check us out on our audio providers, Google, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Geezer, Deezer, FanHub. We're on there. I think we're on some others as well, which my co-host, Mr. Forrest, will fill you in on, no doubt, if he remembers them in his final words. But from me, thanks for joining us. If you're going to Burnley, hope you enjoy the game on Saturday, and we'll be with you again soon.
Yeah, as Baz just said, cheers to thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you for those of you who have listened to us for all 50 of our official episodes. There's been a few other episodes as well, probably on 68 or something really, but it's the Premier League ones that we've been counting, if you like. The support is very much appreciated. Whether you are listening to us, one, because you like our insight, two, because you're a negative Baz, three, because you're a positive Will, four, because you think you're Danny Ings' biggest fan. Well, you've got another thing coming if you think that, because you couldn't be further from the truth. Let me tell you that, brother. Or whether it's because you need something to help you get to sleep. I'm sure it's because, like us, you love all things claret and blue. And on that note, just want to say once again, for the 50th time. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Thank you to Liam, Dave, Russell, Connor, Jamie, everybody else who's joined us before. We're all Villa till we die. Up the Villa.